What's up, y'all? Today I got the rest of the books I read in July, second half of the reading log. Y'all already know the deal by now, hopefully. Let's go. This is Phenomena by Brian Michael Business. Brian Michael Bendis. Ever heard of him? And Andre Lima Araujo? I always think it's Araujo, but then I heard him go on to See-Through Panel, and he said Araujo or something like that. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm trying my best, Andre. My formal apologies. This is the last book in the series. It is a trio of books. This book is printed by Abram Comic Arts, so it goes through the book market, not really through like the comic market. It's essentially 3 graphic novels. This is the grand conclusion. Now, I have not read much Brian Michael Bendis stuff, which I know is kind of crazy. I read Alias, and that might be the end of the list, to be honest. Which, Alias was, like, cool. It was fine with me. Definitely not bad. Which might also be a hot take. But this book series, I think is great. This is an all-ages series. It's all done in black and white, but Andre Lima Araujo is out of his gourd. So the artwork is incredible. I'm very glad that this third one is out. I think this would be a great, like, binge read. Just go back to back to back. I kind of needed a refresher for me, just because the plot is kind of zany. But it's really imaginative. It follows two kids and their like guardian, who is like essentially this like ninja Power Ranger type, for lack of a better word, and they go on different adventures through this magical world where the world exists post Phenomena, and the book is mildly interested in what the phenomena was, but not really. It really feels like just an opportunity for Andre Lima Araujo to draw all sorts of crazy shit. Very manga inspired. His line work is incredibly clean. His character work is very fun. It's very cartoony. It's a great time. I'm really being vague on plot because this is the last one. I don't really want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read these yet. But big recommend by me. I think these are great fun. They're very wholesome. Again, these are all ages books, so there's never anything too like nasty or gruesome or like, over the top, but there's lots of action. There's a really imaginative world that I believe would be really colorful. And as much as I do like the black and white art, I feel like some of the stuff with color would be very like, I don't know. It'd just be cool to look at. Not that I'm complaining. The artwork's gorgeous. But yeah, it was a good time. It's a good time. I think this is like a great book for a kid. If you're giving this to a kid, it would be great. I am not a kid, and I enjoyed it thoroughly, though. Phenomena, I think I'm going to give a 4 out of 5. Big recommend. It's a good book. Up next, we got Where the Body Was by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I've been recently trying to go through more Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips stuff. I was inspired by another book that I will be talking about. Actually, there's a video already out. I started reading Criminal by him because I had a good deal on it, and it like changed my life, dude. That book is so good. So I was like, maybe I got to read more Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips. I read Sleep already. I read Pulp, a couple others. Read Criminal, loved it. I'll have it later in this list, even though you guys have already seen me talk about it in the video. That's all good, though. The video, I think you can find it. There's a video about Criminal, the 2 deluxe editions that I read, if you want to check that out. This book is a very different, well, not actually that different. Different tone, but I feel like this could definitely be in the Criminal series if it didn't take place somewhere else, right? We're kind of dropped into this neighborhood in the 80s, right? We get a map, it shows us the whole deal. Like, has the map here, but also has the end pages, which I thought was kind of weird. But we kind of drop into this neighborhood, and then a dead body shows up. And this kind of goes through all the characters in the town, and everybody kind of gives their idea of what happens. And you get like a slow reveal of what's happening in this town. Not that there's some big sinister conspiracy, but just these like small, really like personal human stories that happen in this town. And you get like these little vignettes. Vignette is hard. I feel like they're longer than a vignette, but maybe that's still the right word to use. You just get these little stories of all the people who live in this neighborhood, and it all comes together, and people go... they tell you're making theories the whole time of how this body shows up. You also get a couple of characters who have their theories of exactly what happened. At the very end of the book, it does tell you what happened to that body. But it's not really the point of it, necessarily. The real point is just to see this, like, cool world. Or, like, just to jump into this neighborhood. It's like makes me feel nostalgic, even though I definitely was not alive in 1980 anything. So it's really, really well written. It's one of those where like the weaving in and out, like all the stories connect in a really satisfying way, but they're all like next door to each other and adjacent, just like everyone in this town is. And the way that Ed Brubaker like walks, I can't show that much of this book. I forgot. And as everything that like Ed Brubaker includes in these stories and the way he like masterfully weaves in and out is really, really impressive. And I think the crowning achievement of this book, Sean Phillips' art is great as always. I think he's just like the best like director in comics where like none of this stuff, he's never going to give you something that's like so like complicated or wild or like something you've never seen before necessarily, but everything is so clear and it's so easy to understand what's happening in this comic the whole time. And I think that is the number one thing that you need from a comic book, is that it is clear, easy to read, and easy to understand. At no point are you thinking about what something is supposed to be. You're drawn exactly to where you're supposed to be at all times, and that's because Sean Phillips is sick. He's so good. He's so good. So let me stop flipping through this book before I get myself in real trouble. Where the Body Was, Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips. I think this is a 5 out of 5. I don't know if it's a banger masterpiece necessarily, but this book is so good. It's so good. Everyone should read it. If you like crime, that's really what it is. And that's what they do. So you should know this by now. Very good book. Up next, we got Mind Management by Matt Kindt. He's a writer-artist. We love a writer-artist. Now, this one is, I would say, his most famous book. His number one on the list for Matt Kindt is Mind Management. I had bought this book forever ago, like really early when I got into comics, and I opened it up, and I really did not like his artwork, which sounds bad to say, but I don't mean it like I'm trying to, just keep it a buck with how I felt. Didn't get it. Couldn't get into it. Couldn't understand. But I feel like after reading comics for a while, I came back and revisited it, and I appreciated all these things that I didn't necessarily like even think about when I was reading it the first time. Mind Management is about this organization of like psychics and mind control and all of these crazy mental powers and things, and kind of just its existence is really what it's about. We follow this girl here. What's her name? Maru? Yeah, we follow Maru. She's trying to write a book about this plane that disappeared, and then as she goes down this rabbit hole, it becomes more and more like convoluted and crazy. Then we kind of reveal the Mind Management organization as it goes on, which is really vague. But this book is very sprawling. It does everything. There's a lot happening in this book. Matt Kindt, I feel like this book is not very necessarily plot focused. He's kind of just doing these short stories to illustrate the world to you, and then by the time you hit the end of this book, everything locks into place and it makes sense, and you're like, dude, this guy's a genius. So, I know that style of book isn't necessarily for everyone. I had a great experience with it. I read this on a plane, on a very long flight. I read this entire book, and I thought it was very rewarding to read it quickly like that. I know that a lot of people, read this in single issues, so maybe that's, my experience isn't the way it was supposed to be read necessarily, but he does this cool thing where at the end of every book he kind of gives you a case file about an agent in Mind Management, which I think is really fun. But it's just illustrating this world. It's just grows and grows and grows as you continue to read it. It becomes more and more interesting and complicated and overlapping. He does this cool thing, you can't really see it here. Oh yeah, you can. Where on the pages he writes, there's like different little notes on the edge. I don't know if you can see that there. There you go. Yeah, so there's like a story within the story, and then sometimes we'll even put drawings at the blank spot right here. Really interesting. I kind of find it hard to read through the book with so much, because I'm like reading this page, then this, which is like a page of 3 stories at the same time. Which is a little difficult for me, but I think it's a really cool like bit of, comics, man. It's very unique. Matt Kindt is an innovator in the comics medium, and so you can really see him use all of his skills in this book. All the things that make Matt Kindt so good are here and present in Mind Management. This book I had a spectacular time with. I think it's very interesting. I don't know how big of a recommend this is. However, I do still think it's a 5 out of 5. At least this first book. I just think that it's not the most accessible. I think you need to have read a lot of comics before this one. This should not be anybody's first comic. But it's very good. It's very, very good. Yeah, Mind Management, 5 out of 5. This shit slaps, bro. I got Criminal, the Deluxe Edition, Volume 1, Volume 2. I'm not going to talk about it much on here. There is another video on my channel where I talk about both the Criminal books. All I'm going to tell you here is that this is a 5 out of 5 banger masterpiece. Excellent crime comics. Maybe the best there ever's been. So, if you want to hear more, check out that video. Otherwise, I'm moving on. Up next, we got Birthright. This is by Josh Williamson, drawn by Andre Bresson, colored by Adriana Lucas. Yeah. This story is about a young boy. He is out with his dad. They're playing at the park. He walks into the woods, and he's transported into a fantasy world. And, a couple years later, he comes back, and he's this big, like, action hero character with this big mission from another world. So it's kind of, the story is about, like, these two worlds, our world, and then this magical fantasy world, and them interacting, and then the boy who was supposed to be the chosen one, and kind of hearing his story. I feel like it definitely goes on further than that. I don't know if, like, the idea gets more complicated than that ever. That being said, it is really fun seeing Andre Bresson draw all this crazy fantasy stuff. And also, honestly, just draw anything, dude. Andre Bresson's good. He's so good. That was my biggest takeaway from this comic, is that Andre Bresson is sick with it, man. He's one of those guys that feels like can just draw anything and draw it really well. So, yeah. I love this book, dude. I thought it was super fun. It's also, like, one of the best made of these, like, deluxe editions from Image. Like, this is fake, like, leather. I don't know. It's fun. Really cool design on it. I think that this book is, like, a fun time. I don't necessarily think this is gonna, like, change anybody's life. I'd say at the beginning of it, I was, like, interested, and then it would kind of lose me, because we get, sometimes in these, like, very action-focused books, we kind of get in these, like, narrative loops, where it feels like we're just finding complications without moving the plot forward, and I feel like this book suffers from that a little bit, for sure. But, like, for the most part, it's a pretty fun time. And then by the end of this book, I was like, this is a big, fat deluxe edition. By the end of it, I was like, I'm in. You know what? I'll get the next one. I want to see what happens next. It's a good time. So yeah, it's good. I don't want to, like, put my career on this one. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think this is a fun recommendation. It's a good time. Josh Williamson is probably not my favorite writer in the world. But I know he's, like, really wrapped up in Marvel and DC, and I'm not really a big reader necessarily. But, like, there's cool ideas in here. There's some fun characters. I think the ideas are better than the characters, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud. Some of the characters feel a little bit, like, simple, but there is, some good progression, especially with our boy Mikey here as the story goes on. It's a fun time. It's not going to change your life. Birthright, I would probably give a high 3 out of 5. Perhaps a 4 out of 5, somewhere in there. It's pretty good. Up next, we got Adventure Man, written by Matt Fraction, drawn by Terry Dodson, colored by his wife, Miss Dodson. I forget her name right now. Does that have it in here? Rachel Dodson. There we go. Dude, first thing I want to point out about Adventure Man, this book is huge, bro. Huge. This is like a normal hardcover next to it. This book is big as hell. Big as hell. This is the deluxe edition next to it. Shit is big as hell. So Adventure Man is a book that I had been, like, thinking about buying forever. This was in the Barnes & Noble, my, like, local Barnes & Noble forever, and I looked at it, and I was like, that art looks really good, but I don't know. It's kind of, the pitch on the back is that it's about Adventure Man, who was, like, the storybook hero, but maybe he wasn't as fictional as we think. And I, personally, hate books about books. I'm not trying to get into any meta fiction nonsense. So I really wasn't interested I wasn't interested in that idea of it, but it looks so cool, and I love the aesthetic of it, and Matt Fraction's a good writer. So I was torn. Then it finally got to a price. I saw it online where I was like, I should at least give it a shot, you know? And I'm glad I did. This was really, really fun. And that's really feels like the main goal of the book, too. The goal of the book is to have fun. It's not trying to, like I feel like, for example, Birthright that I was just talking about is fun, but the goal of it isn't necessarily to be fun. Does that make sense? Like, fun happens in between, but it actually takes itself incredibly seriously, like 90% of the time. I would argue perhaps too seriously at moments. This one never has that problem. Like I said, look at this, dude. Terry Dodson is a sicko, bro. Look at this. We get a little peek at Adventure Man and this, like, grand battle towards the end of his Adventure Manning career, the big final last battle at the, towards the end of his story. And then we jump back to the modern world where we're following this lady who's a mom, a single mom with she has hearing aids and she's trying her best. And it's kind of like we're kind of jumping between those two people for this book. I don't really want to get into it more than that because this book is not actually that long, so I'm not trying to spoil anything. But it's really fun, dude. Really fun. Matt Fraction, I've heard in interviews where he talks about how like he thinks comics are getting like too dark and like moving away from the good stuff that they have, where it was just like a fun time, and and that's what this is. It's bright and colorful and exciting. It's great stuff. It's really great stuff. So, like, it's hard for me to say that, like, I feel like when I'm rating these books a lot of the time, it's like, if it's like a 5 out of 5 masterpiece, it's like, makes you think about things, and it's beautiful, and it's like poetic, and this well-written thing, But this one it's not going for that. And I think it achieves its goal of making this, like, creative, fun book. I think this could be said that it's an all-ages book. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be, necessarily. I think it just happens to be something that kids could also read. But I had a great time with it. I flew through this in one sitting. There's a couple other hardcovers that I will definitely be getting. I really like the playfulness and the joy that happens in all of this, It just feels like everyone who was making this book had such a great time. And so when you're reading it, you can't help but have a good time. It's so fun. Adventure Man, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5. Big recommend. It's just fun adventure, dude. It's called Adventure Man, What'd you expect? Up next, I have Vinland Saga, the deluxe edition. Book 1 and Book 2. Speaking of handsome books, this looks great, dude. Yeah, I know you can't tell, but it's made of this like kind of faux leather treatment that's on there. Very nice. Very pretty books. Vinland Saga is a manga. I've been getting more into manga. This one was really the one that started me off. Vinland Saga, my brother had not this book, but like the smaller version of the book. He had lent me a bunch of them because he knew I was trying to get into manga. So he was like, yo, check these out. I think you'll like these. I read this one and I was like, this shit is sick, dude. It's so good. So Vinland Saga, we follow Thorfinn. I feel like I'm explaining the plot of this book. You've probably heard of it. This is like a mega popular book. The show I know is popular. Like, it's all there. I can't imagine not reading this. I feel like you're at a loss if you're just watching the show. Partially because the artwork is sick. We follow Thorfinn, who's a Viking. And he is working with this crew of Vikings, of bad dudes. And we're kind of just following that crew as they move through the world. Which is like the vaguest I can be about the plot. You guys know I don't like spoilers. But it really is mostly that. And then you just get to know Thorfinn and like his backstory, and you learn more about these characters. The character work in this book is incredible. Somehow it manages to like one up the stakes, and you just believe that all of these guys are like big and scary, and like it makes sense why they are like head honcho Vikings. They're so colorful and interesting, and it's mildly educational. Y'all know I don't really like to read. I don't really like to learn while I read. But this teaches you stuff about Vikings that I didn't know, and I thought was interesting. We had a lot of time with this guy, Askeladd, who I think is a very interesting character that I love learning about as it goes on. I've only read these first 2 deluxes. So what is that? That's like like 1,000 pages, dude. These books are huge. There's like 1,500 pages between both of them, and I can't get enough. this, I mean, the artwork is really, really spectacular stuff. But Makoto Yukimura, who writes this, is definitely not afraid to get like cartoony and kind of like those two styles next to each other of like just how good of an artist he is here. It'll be like very realistic. Then we get into fights and you get some like, you know, more animated reactions. There's a really silly character in this book who just looks like a Humpty Dumpty. You know, and it's very fun. It's a very good time. This is definitely one of those books that like thinks has a lot to say and thinks about the violence that's happening in it, which I always think is very interesting for such like a violent action book. It's not taking it lightly, taking the violence lightly, which is something I just always like in books. It's incredible, dude. This book is actually the greatest manga I've ever read. I think this book is already on my like top, I don't know, top 10, top 5 books I've ever read. I've only read the first 2 deluxes. There's like 6 more. But it's so like riveting, dude. Like it takes its time and does that decompressed style that manga is so good at. But the action when it's there is so fast paced and it speeds it all up. The character work's incredible. The settings are incredible. The artwork is like 10 out of 10. Like, it's just everything is being executed at such a high level in this book. And for that reason, Vinland Saga is a 5 out of 5 banger masterpiece. It doesn't get better than this. I really don't. So if you ever even, I mean, if you read comics, you should get this book, I think. Maybe this deluxe. They're very nice. I think that for the quality of the book, they're fairly reasonably priced. Ooh, $55. I didn't pay that for this book. But you can get it everywhere, dude. This is like the most popular book in the world, and it is for a reason. Okay, this is my last book. I saved this one for last. This is the bulk of the reading I did in July was this book. Ex Machina by Brian K. Vaughan, drawn by Tony Harris. This is a big boy, dude. Like, this is a big ass book. I bought it for a good deal online somewhere. Cheap graphic novels, maybe. I'm not sure. Got it for a reasonable price. Love Brian K. Vaughan, you know, Mount Rushmore comic book writer, perhaps the greatest to ever do it, I think some would say. I'm not saying they're wrong. I just like to bring that up whenever there's like a really famous writer. This story is about the mayor of New York, Mitchell Hundred, who he has the ability to speak to machines, so they like do his bidding, right? But he used to be a superhero right here, named what is his name? The Great Machine. There we go. But he turns away from being a superhero because he thinks he could do better running for office and helping the city that way. And so he becomes the mayor of New York City. And this is basically like a political procedural put in comic book form. And I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. First thing I want to bring up is that Tony Harris is very good. This is the first time I've seen Tony Harris's art. But it really makes this book. It's a very distinct style. The coloring is really good. It's great. His acting is really good. Like, these expressions are so, like even just these right here. His expression work is sick. So good. Brian K. Vaughan's writing is great. His dialogue is very snappy. The thing that should be of note is that this book is from the early 2000s, so it has a lot of the early 2000s isms. He says a lot of words I don't think you would say these days in this book. But I didn't think it didn't bother me when I was doing it. It's definitely dated, but like Dave Chappelle has a great quote where he's like, I don't get mad at a picture because it's not today. You know what I mean? So it's as long as you know that going in, I don't think it affects the read at all. It's very, very invested in the day-to-day of the mayoral office, right? And typically that is not something that would interest me necessarily. But I think the way that it's done here, it just feels like I'm reading a TV show that I would want to watch every week, you know? Like one of these shows that has it references The West Wing on the back, and that's like the parallel. And I think that hits perfectly, where it's like a show you want to show up every week for. Something happens, you know, it gets complicated. How is he going to solve the problem this week? But with this undercurrent of like this sci-fi, like how did Mitchell Hendred get his powers? There's no real that's not true. There are supervillains. But this isn't like a world drenched in like this fantastic or drenched in this other sci-fi stuff. It's like just him, really. And so all the weird stuff that happens is somehow related to him, and it's him like figuring out these connections. Why did he get his powers? Where did they come from? What does this mean? But those questions are answered very, very slowly, while the day-to-day mayor office things are all the time. And it's really what the focus of this book is. I really had a great time reading this. I read this, I think, pretty fast. Like, all this reading happened during the month of July, and I still read all these other books, you know? Brian K. Vaughan is a genius. Tony Harris, oh yeah, that's a big part of it, is that because of him, he saves one of the two Twin Towers through his superpowers and him being in New York. That's a big plot point for this, which is a little much. I'm not a little much. It's a little bit like hot button. I don't know. That feels like a gimmick to get people to read the book to me, but didn't take away from my joy reading this book. I thought it was a pretty good time. I don't know that I would recommend this to everyone. However, I do give this book a 4 out of 5. I think it's very well made. I think all the parts of the book are very well executed. You cannot like the subject matter. You cannot like some of the political happenings in this book, but I think it's objectively very well made. And objectively a pretty good comic, I'd say. Yeah, so that is every book I read in July over 2 videos. It was a little slow getting them out, so I'd like to apologize for that, but I'm going to try and stick to at least 2 videos a week coming up here. If you watched all the way through, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you. As always, if you could leave comments down below. This time I want to hear the stuff that you read this month. So if you want to share some of the things that you read, what you thought of them, I'd love to read about it in the comments. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Yo, before you go, I wanted to show you the comics that I make. This is The Gifts of the Zadik. It follows our main character, Ram, who has just been crowned the Zadik, also known as the Chosen One, in his small village, and given unreal powers. But as soon as he gets these powers, he is disillusioned by the role that his people wish him to play, and so he wants to go out and find how to become a hero out in the world. It'll sweeten the pot. He also finds that there's another chosen one out there, somewhere in the world, that maybe can give him answers and help him find his true purpose. If you are interested in buying this book, you can get them at lior.com. It's a great way to support me, the artist, and the guy who runs this channel. Thank you all for watching. I'll see y'all later.